We've seen that Glaucon's theory of human happiness is a really radical one. In his view, there's no advantage to being just or being moral unless you're also thought to be just. And what's best is to be unjust, or at least disregard conventional morality while having a reputation for justice. Somebody who tries to strictly live by the rules of morality is a sucker in his view. All that matters is being thought to be just. So the policy he's recommending is that you should follow the rules of morality when people are looking, and that you should disregard them when people are not looking, which a lot of people do. He says that a person who does this will live and die as they have a mind to, and his basic idea is that they're just getting what they want. Now, one objection that occurs to most people, I think, is that this isn't such a smart policy. I mean, isn't it incredibly hard to hide all of one's misdeeds? Like a lot of politicians, isn't one going to get caught sooner or later? His reply to this is very simple. No one ever said it was easy to be happy, to be well off. Nothing really worth having is easy, nothing great is easy, but it is worth it. This is the path he urges to true happiness. You might be a bit worried, though, about God. Now, in ancient Greece, they were polytheists. They believed in many gods. Greek philosophers, some of them accepted traditional Greek religion and believed in the gods, Zeus and company. This is the whole Greek pantheon here. Pantheon is a collection of gods. We talk about the pantheon of ancient Egypt, or the pantheon of ancient Greece, the pantheon of Hinduism, and it comes from Greek words meaning all, and theon, that's the gods, the plural of theos. It's all the gods, or all gods. So this is the Greek pantheon, Father Zeus here being the chief god. And you might worry, hey, Glaucon is essentially recommending hypocrisy, and isn't some god going to rain down thunderbolts on you or something if you pull this off? You might think, doesn't this show that he's recommending a foolish policy to us? In response to this, Glaucon has a pretty developed argument. See what you think about this. And I have a picture here on the left from an ancient Greek piece of pottery, and they're about to sacrifice an animal there on an altar to a god. Here's his argument in reply. Either the gods exist or not. There were ancient Greek philosophers who denied the existence of the gods. They said, look, this is just a bunch of traditional mythology. You shouldn't think that this is true. Others believed in the gods. Others, it's unclear what their attitude was. But how could you deny this premise? Either the gods, as described in traditional mythology, exist or not. If they don't exist, of course there's no need to worry about them. Non-existent deities aren't going to punish us or disrupt our deceptive lifestyle. If the gods do exist, they are either concerned with human affairs or not. There have been people sometimes that have suggested that God or the gods just live in godly bliss, in divine happiness and fulfillment, and really don't care about what goes on down here. So the argument says, let's take each option. If they are not concerned about human affairs, then we don't need to worry about them. Hard to argue with that. If they are concerned about human affairs, then we can get them on our side by prayers, sacrifices, offerings, and rituals, etc. So if you're living the life of Two-Faced Ted, hopefully you'll have enough money to make donations to temples, to maybe sponsor religious feasts, to pay for animal and other kinds of sacrifices. And so then maybe you shouldn't worry about the gods, right? So therefore we don't need to worry about the gods. Either they exist or they don't. If they don't exist, we don't have to worry. If they do exist, they either care or they don't. If they don't care, we don't have to worry about them. If they do care, no problem. We know how to make the gods happy. Notice that this is a valid argument. It's put together in the right way, so to speak, meaning that if you accepted all of those as true, to be consistent, you would also have to accept the conclusion. If each premise is true, then that forces the conclusion to be true as well, doesn't it? The real question is, are all the premises true or not? Is this a sound argument? It is valid, though. It's indisputably valid. Let's just go through these premises one by one and ask whether they're true or not. Surely we have to agree that this one is true. either the gods exist or not, and that if they don't exist, we don't have to worry, right? Non-existent entities cannot interfere with our lifestyle. It's hard to see how you could disagree with this. Those seem like all the options. And if they're not concerned, yes, then they would just ignore us. They would not be concerned that we are talking one way and living another when nobody's looking. The real key premise seems to be this one. If you don't think there's good reason to believe 5, you're not going to accept this as a convincing argument. You're going to say either that you don't know that this argument is sound, so it's not a cogent argument to you, or you're going to say, hey, I think 5 is false, and therefore the argument is unsound. I suggest that there's a difference here between ancient Greek religion and the kind of religion that more people find plausible today, at least in Western societies. In ancient Greek religion, it was sort of assumed that there was a different god for every different area of human interest, and also for each country and each domain. So there'd be a god of the forest, a god of the sky, a god of fertility, a god of war, a god of the ocean, and so on. There's all these gods and goddesses, each with their own domain or their own area of interest, and so to get by in life, you need to be able to interact with them and basically manipulate them in a kind of business relationship. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. So there's a sort of way of interacting with the pantheon, which is typical of a lot of, possibly all, polytheistic religion. And it's not entirely clear that these gods are moral. In the traditional stories, the gods are always killing each other, committing adultery, scheming and plotting, lying, manipulating, and so on. It's not clear whether they would be displeased with a person living a hypocritical lifestyle. Now contrast that with the type of religion you're probably more familiar with, where people believe in one being, and this being is supposed to be perfectly good, and is supposed to know everything, and be all-powerful, and be everywhere. A being like that is not going to just gladly let you get away with the life of Two-Faced Ted. And he's probably not going to be impressed if you go on a murder spree and then cynically try to make a big donation to your local church. According to monotheistic religions like Christianity and Judaism and Islam, he would be most displeased with this sort of hypocrisy. Never mind organized religion, if he's a perfect being, I mean, he would be bad to approve of this and just sort of go along with this scheme where you cynically buy off his approval through offerings and money donations and things like that. Now Glaucon has a sort of answer to this. His answer is basically that if you think you know that the gods exist, surely this is on the basis of what you've heard from poets and religious teachers. But if you trust those poets and religious teachers about the gods' existence, you should also trust them when they tell you that the gods can be bought off. And if you don't believe traditional poets and religious teachers, then presumably you have no reason to believe in gods. You should be an atheist. There is, of course, a controversial assumption here, which is that the only reason anybody has for believing in God or in gods is just that that's what they've heard. That's what they've been taught. That's what some people think, but of course some people would urge that they have grounds for belief in God, such as religious experience or an argument for God's existence. We'll get into those issues a little bit at the end of the course. For now, back to Glaucon's theory. Time for you to be the philosopher. What would you think? This is our discussion for this lecture. I want you to answer this. I would be well off. That is, be truly happy, have a happy life, if and only if... fill in the blank. You tell me what.